Hello, students. Let's discuss the quantity theory of money. So these are the relevant chapters over here, 24, 25, and 26 for all these theories. And specifically for the quantity theory of money, this was developed by this gentleman in the middle here, Milton Friedman. And basically, you have to memorize this equation. Money times velocity equals price times quantity of GDP, price times real GDP. So what does this mean? Milton Friedman was the gentleman who said, let's try to keep a balance between the amount of money we provide the economy on the left and the GDP on the right. So you may be familiar with this type of graph here. On the left, where we have price times quantity of GDP. And what he said is the GDP is price times the real amount of GDP goods produced. So please remember with supply or demand, when you go to buy something in a store, you don't just pay for 2 boxes of shoes, for example. You need to have a price, right? So when you go to the cashier, they're going to charge you for 2 boxes times, let's say, $100. So $200 will be your receipt. It's the price, $100 each, times the quantity of GDP of product that you buy, which is 2 boxes. So that's basically what we have here. Now, we can't write down every price in the whole economy. We can't write here the price of sneakers, chewing gum, Scope, a Pepsi, Coca-Cola, a car. For the whole economy, we can't put down all the prices. So as we said with inflation, we pick a starting year, let's say 2008, take a starting year, and then we take an average of all the prices of consumer goods called the Consumer Price Index, take the average of what everybody buys during a year, let's say that's $10,000, and we call that 100%. And then if the next year prices go up to, price of everything go up to 11,000, well, 11,000 divided by 10,000, it means it's gone up to 110%. And let's say the next year prices go up to 12,000 for this consumer price index, this index of things that people buy. Well, 12,000 divided by 10,000 is 120%. So we just take a starting year and look at the price level in terms of what percentage all the prices have gone up. And then the real GDP, again, we take the starting year GDP, let's say 8 trillion for 2008, 9 trillion for 2009, 10 trillion for the next year, and so forth, and multiply it by the price level to figure out what it really is. So here, 8 trillion is 100% because this is a starting year. Now here we're saying in the next year, 9 trillion, it's 9 trillion times 110%, which would be 9.9 trillion, would be the nominal GDP, which means including prices, would be 9.9 trillion. The real GDP is 9 trillion. The 110% to make it 9.9 is just the price level. But just a reminder, price times real GDP, price level times real GDP, or price times quantity is the GDP. So Milton Friedman said, let's only produce enough money to pay for that GDP. So should we just say M over here? Price times quantity of GDP, or price level times real GDP, quantity is M, money. Well, let's think about that. Let's take an example of your rent. Let's say that you pay 12,000 a year in rent. You have a small studio somewhere, and you pay 12,000 a year in rent. So the price of based on the inflation level, let's say the previous year was 11,000 or something, and then it went up 10%. So now it's 12,000 a year in rent. Now, do you take all the rent, the whole $12,000 out of the bank on January 1st, put it in your bathtub, and then every month go and take $1,000 out of there to pay the rent? No, right? Doesn't make any sense. So what you do is you get paid every month, and every month you pay 1,000 in rent, and then you don't worry about it until next month, correct? So how much cash do you need? Oh, really? How much money does the Federal Reserve really need to print for you to pay your monthly rent of $1,000? Only $1,000, right? For the entire year, they're going to have to uh, give you that $1,000, and you're going to have to spend it, the same $1,000, in and out of the bank from your account to your landlord's account. You're going to have to spend it 12 times. So that's what we call the velocity. So they only have to print actually $1,000 for your rent, and then you're going to use it 12 times. So 1,000 times 12, and that's going to be the 12,000 in cash that you have. But the money needs to be only 1,000, and the velocity is how many times you're going to recycle that, how many times you're going to get paid, and then pay it out. So how many times you're going to use it during the years? Let's say it's 12. So M is actually the amount of cash they need to print. And then depending on how fast consumers are using it, because the same $1,000 is going to just keep going in and out of the bank, the same 1,000 in cash, they pay you, you pay the landlord puts it back in the bank. So the same $1,000 is available to the bank every month, depending on the velocity with which you use it. So in this example, let's say GDP is 10 trillion in this equilibrium point, in which approximately it was 2010, just by coincidence, 10 trillion. And then, but the price level has gone up to 120%. So the actual amount of physical cash that you need to pay the nominal GDP, which is what you go to pay when you go to the cashier, price times quantity, is 10 times 120%, or 12 trillion. So you need 12 trillion. 10 is the real GDP over here on the bottom, 10 trillion, times 120%. That's 12 trillion, okay? And then let's assume the velocity is 12. Then if you have to pay 12 trillion, the velocity is 12, they only need to give you 1 trillion in cash, and you're going to recycle it 12 times. So Milton Friedman was saying, let's keep the amount of money that we print just enough to satisfy the production, that real GDP, production in the economy at the price level. And let's not print more cash than's needed, or the kind of inflation. Let's not print less cash than needed. Otherwise, we'll have a recession. That idea is called monetarism, keeping the two things in balance, but the equation is called the quantity theory of money. So please distinguish between monetarism, which is the idea of keeping these two things in balance, and the equation, which is called QTM, or quantity theory of money. So let's do some simple algebra example here of a question you might see on the test. So I could tell you nominal GDP or just GDP. If I don't say real GDP, it means the whole thing times the price. So if I just say GDP or nominal GDP, it means this whole thing. So I could tell you this is 20, nominal GDP is 20, or I could tell you price is 2 and real GDP is 10. Either way. But let's suppose I give you price is 2, real GDP is 10, and the amount of cash in the economy is 5. So what's the velocity? Well, this is 20, is 5 times what? So how do we calculate that? To remind you of simple algebra, we want to get the V all by itself on this side, and so we can solve the equation. So we're going to divide this 5 by itself, because 5 by 5 is 1, right? 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 1 times V is V, so that way we'll get the 5 to go away. We divide this by 5 to get it to go away, to get it to become 1. But if I do something to one side of an equation for it to stay equal, it's like a balance of a scale. For it to stay equal, I have to do the same thing to the other side. So I also have to divide the other side by 5. So in this case, 5 over 5 is 1 times V is V. And 20 divided by 5 is 4. So my velocity is 4. And that's how you solve these problems, okay? So practice, make up a few problems for yourself and practice. Here's some problems that I did. You can practice there, okay? It's on Blackboard. So the monitors followed the ideas of Milton Friedman. They did not approve of Keynes' ideas the government should juice up the economy by shooting up more government spending for fiscal policy or more cash, or more cash through monetary policy. They said the central bank should provide just enough money. Okay, and this is the equation. PY equals MV. And I had left that blank over there in case you wanted to practice filling in the blank. And that's basically all we need to know about the quantity theory of money. Easy, right? And I'll see you next class.